Hey everyone, welcome to the Brain Body Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Zimmerman. Beyond the diagnosis and symptoms, there's a path to feeling better. Dive into the world of brain-body connection and learn how to optimize your health. This week's discussion. So we are going to be talking about missed concussion diagnoses with my wife, who unfortunately is one of the many who has went with undiagnosed concussion issues, and it's impacted her for years before we ever figured out what was going on. So this is going to be more of an interview style. Now, if you have questions along the way, feel free to ask them, and we'll make sure that we address them, because many of you are probably dealing with the same symptoms, or at least know someone that is. So let's go back to just really the very beginning when we first met back in college. What were some of the symptoms you were dealing with that outwardly you told people about?
Outwardly, I was dizzy. I had headaches. People knew that I had insomnia. People knew that I had that just because I would stay up and out till 2 or so. And sometimes that's just college life, but I would stay home and still not go to sleep after that. And everything else was kind of just normal for me. I even learned to deal with the headaches and the dizziness.
Yep. So the dizziness, the headaches, the insomnia. And what was, how long had you dealt with that for?
Since starting from now or from when we met?
From the very beginning. When did you first start getting the headaches?
It was probably around junior high school, and they thought it was the fluorescent lighting in the school, and because I had glasses, but I had glasses previously and never had any issues with fluorescent lights. But it was around then when I had my first car accident.
Okay, so about a decade dealing with headaches from a car accident. And when we met, you have the headaches, which I knew about. What were you doing at that point in time to help with the headaches?
I was prescribed Mountain Dew and salt. That's what my doctor had told me to. And I remember telling my mom about the visit because she said she'd pay for whatever prescription. And I'm like, I get Mountain Dew and potato chips. And she just kind of laughed and couldn't believe it.
Yep. So if you're listening, what's the craziest thing you've been told from a doctor to do for your headaches, for your dizziness and things like that? And now at that point in time, been dealing with it for a decade, maybe even a little bit longer than that. And we were at a really tough college, and I'm not going to say I was the smartest person there, but I knew drinking Mountain Dew every single day, something didn't seem right. And so I was like, look, you've just got to cut out Mountain Dew. Now, part of it at that point in time was religious, because it was like, oh, well, caffeine, this or that. But most of it was just like, that just doesn't sound right. And so what were the changes that you noticed when you stopped Mountain Dew?
Well, first I still had headaches, but that was probably from the withdrawal from all the caffeine, because I literally drank Red Bull and Mountain Dew like it was water. But then after, I noticed some decrease, I had brain fog. And I noticed that sometimes I could think more clearly, and when I would lay down to standing up, I wouldn't get as dizzy as I had previously gotten. I still had insomnia, but that's always how it's been.
So we had a little bit of headaches that improved by getting off the caffeine. Now we're going to fast forward, because really for pretty much the rest of college, we didn't do anything differently, kind of just went through life. And it wasn't till I was in chiropractic school that things picked up again. So in chiropractic school, everything's about neck pain and headaches and your curvature of your spine. Mm-hmm. Now, we had someone who was working on that with us about a year, maybe, plus or minus a little bit into school. Now, what happened at that point in time that made us realize something else was going on?
So I always have had neck pains, and they would adjust me constantly, and I would still, hours later, it would hurt again. And so they're like, well, maybe we need to put a dinner roll
Yep. So that was called like basically a Denny roll. It's something you put underneath your spine, different parts to help with that curvature.
So they put that on there and I just started feeling nauseous. Like I knew I wasn't pregnant. I wasn't sick. And then I threw up. So
yep. They sat you up. You threw up. I think we even did a little bit of vibration that day as well.
That was awful.
And that tipped her over. Now, a lot of you are like, oh man, but my chiropractor, my provider loves vibration. Now, for some people, it actually is okay. But it was at that point in time, we're like, something's not right. The headaches, the neck pain wasn't getting better with chiropractic. But for it to tip her into nausea, dizziness, and ultimately vomiting, it was like, what was going on? So, we got her the best little workup we could in chiropractic school. Unfortunately, didn't really get us very far. And so next was probably 6 months to a year later.
When we went off gluten.
I was getting into natural health, working with a lot of people with autoimmunity. And one of the big things is, hey, let's work on our nutritional changes. If I'm going to tell people they need to be off gluten, then I shouldn't be doing it. And so reluctantly, she made the change because that's not the way she grew up. She grew up with fruit snacks or orange soda being called fruit. How many of you can resonate with that? Comment, let us know. But what did you notice when you went off gluten?
Oh, when I went off gluten, well, first, I felt like my puffiness went away. And I thought that was just because I just had a baby like a year ago. But my puffiness went away. My brain, I could think clearly. My memory had always been so bad. And I would go into the kitchen and have to walk back in and forth 4 or 5 times just to remember what I was doing. I had to make tons of lists and I didn't need those as much. I was able to sleep a little better. I used to talk in my sleep and
yes, there's a pretty severe sleep disorder that she had. And when she said bad memory, this was one where we met. It was like, oh man, if this is her memory now, what is pregnancy brain going to do to her? Surprisingly, because actually it was before the first kid started getting off gluten, because the pregnancy wasn't as bad as we expected from that. But previously, she would leave her phone in the freezer. She would be on the phone with you and say, hey, I lost my phone. Can you help me find it?
Or I went to visit you at work one time and I had to go to the store. So I drove to the store and I was like, Spencer, I can't find my keys. Did I leave them at your office? It's like, how did you leave?
Yep. So, these are things that routinely happen. Now, we'll do other videos where we talk about what happens, why gluten can cause that in the brain. But doing that, we saw a lot of improvements, like full-blown sleep disorders, walking, talking in the sleep, just all sorts of stuff. Didn't remember a single thing. Most of that disappeared. Headaches significantly improved as well.
I almost felt like a new person because I couldn't, I could finally remember stuff. I didn't feel as tired. I still worked. And I swear after every lunchtime, I felt like I needed a nap. And then I just got I don't know the word, drowsy, dreary. I just didn't want to do anything afterwards. And I could continue to work afterwards and be more productive, which was a little annoying because I like gluten.
Yeah, which kind of brings us to the next part, right? So nutrition improved. We ultimately ended up doing celiac gene testing, which she has the genes for celiac. And anytime she gets even a little bit of gluten, touches it, a wide variety of symptoms come right back. So took her a while to completely avoid it, but she's now off it. Once again, comment, let us know what questions you have, because many of you may be experiencing something similar. And I ended up finding what's called functional neurology. It's really a technique, a methodology of evaluating the brain. And I'd been doing that for a little bit of time. They opened a clinic where I was at in Dallas, and I'd come home every single day pumped because help someone else with dizziness, headaches, brain fog, chronic fatigue, memory, word finding. Saw patients flying in from all over the US. I've worked with NFL, NHL, UFC, Navy SEALs, right? I'm coming home pumped every single day. And then eventually, one of these days, instead of her being like, oh, that's awesome, I'm so proud of you, what did you say? If you're finding this information valuable, please share this podcast with others and give us a 5-star review, as that is the only way this podcast grows. Please continue listening and keep enjoying.
It's like, well, it sounded familiar. And so I was like, is that a symptom of a concussion? So I feel like I'm a hypochondriac where like I hear something and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally have that. Or like you get really annoyed with me because I Google everything and then I come up with like 5 things that I could possibly have when it's none of those. And so I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, I totally have that. Like, that's me again. That's me. Yeah, that's okay. So I didn't want to say anything because I didn't feel like I really had it because of all my previous self-diagnosis. So.
Yep. So she didn't bring it up, and this was dizziness, all sorts of stuff with brain fog, and just so many more things. Even the severity of the headaches and just how consistent they were, because they just weren't as bad as they were previously. So there was a lot of normalizing what you were dealing with.
It just happened.
It was just common.
Mm-hmm.
It was so common. It was normal, which is a big thing I tell patients, is just because it's common does not make it normal. And needless to say, at that point in time, right, I went from being like, holy smokes, I'm helping all these people and they're getting their lives back, to being like, oh crap. Here we've been married for a few years and I've no clue you were dealing with this. And I didn't even know what to do because I was new to that clinic. I didn't know enough, but I did the best little evaluation I could. And needless to say, it was rough. Okay. Balance was not good at all. I'm saying like closing your eyes on a firm surface, falling. There were a lot of things that were just completely off. And it was like, wow, I've got people flying in from all over the world to this clinic I was helping at, and they were getting better. But yet the person who I spent the most time with was dealing with all these issues, and I didn't even know it. And at that point in time, I had a realization. I was like, there are those who know they're dealing with ongoing concussion issues, and then there's those who don't. I've figured out to be, over the course of my career, it's probably 90% of those dealing with ongoing concussion issues are not actually aware that's what it is. They think it's their thyroid. They think it's their hormones and other stuff like that.
That's what I got told when I got checked out in high school, that, oh, it's just hormones. You're just a kid. Like, you're growing up, that's part of life type thing.
Yep. So hormones, right? Puberty is a big thing that gets blamed on teenagers. And what were some things that you noticed as you were going through like middle school and high school? Maybe behavioral changes, school changes, from a symptom perspective that you were dealing with?
So I found it super hard to pay attention. Like I would stare up into space. I had to previously, and I didn't realize this at the time because I thought it was just, me going from elementary to junior high school. But I had to study harder, work harder, when before I didn't really have to. And I didn't know this until you had told us, like me previously, like I went from being social and like having friends to like getting very like anxious whenever I was around people. Yeah. And I didn't realize that. I just thought that was me being super awkward and like growing up.
And these are all very common things that happen with concussions. We know that the rate of depression and anxiety, sleep issues following concussions is really high. Almost 70% of people still dealing with concussion issues are going to have issues with focus and concentration. So if you just get like a newfound ADHD, you've got to say like, hey, you know what, is this really a proper diagnosis, or is this a symptom of something else? As we said, teenagers, concussions routinely get blamed on hormones. You're changing friends, you're changing schools, and maybe that's why you're a bit more moody. But the research, definitely disputes that. And so, turns out there were 3 different car accidents?
Yes, 3. One in junior high, one in high school, and then one college.
So we have 3 different car accidents, every single one of them causing a concussion. Not one of them was actually ever properly evaluated or diagnosed as a concussion, right? It was, you got stuff claimed on your neck, you had stuff claimed on your
whiplash and TMJ.
Yep. So TMJ issues, whiplash. So what she was saying about having neck issues with chiropractic and it wasn't ever doing anything, that's very common with concussions, is when you get your neck worked on, whether it's chiropractic, physical therapy, acupuncture, you don't keep the results because of what's going on. So, that's really the story of what happened when we realized things weren't normal. But then we're going to talk a little bit more about the most recent concussion and just some of the things that you've done to recover. Now, some of these things are different than what we've done in the past when we bring in the office and do care, but kind of what were some of the symptoms you got? So this was about a month ago.
Yeah, it was a month ago. We were painting and had to bring in scaffolding, and we did it ourselves, and it kind of slipped going up the stairs because it was on the stairs and hit my head. And at the time I was like, oh, it hurts. But I think I knew when I got hit in the head, like, oh crap, like I'm pretty sure I gave myself a concussion, but I had stuff to do. And so I didn't mention it. And I didn't want, I wanted to get my stuff done, be able to continue on and hope that it just kind of went away. Even though I know, I was just like, I have stuff I need to get done. But I was super angry. I homeschool our kids, and there were many times where I'm just like, we're going to take a break. I have to get out of here. Otherwise I'm going to lose my cool. I was super emotional. One of my favorite shirts ripped and I was bawling, and it was easily fixable, but I was just in tears, thinking about my favorite shirt ripping.
Pregnancy crying we're talking about, right? Even crying for no reason, but full out tears of the world is ending is what we're talking about.
I don't think I was, maybe it was that dramatic, but no, it was, and I knew, and then I had dizziness, being in lights, hurt my eyes, gave me a headache. I started wearing my LASIK glasses again whenever I was anywhere, just because it was super annoying and caused headaches. I was tired all the time. Yep.
Tired. You slept, 12, 13 hours, but it wasn't even stuff that you told me. You didn't tell me because as a provider, when someone takes a hit to the head, not all hits to the head cause a concussion. And even if someone's like, ow, it's well, is that a ow, boom, and then I'm okay? Or is it a, ow, I've got a concussion? And I think it was later that next day is when you finally admitted some sort of symptom. And then at that point in time, how did things change and how we approached it from there?
So from the time that we I admitted that I had a concussion, and told you, I was banned from doing anything and everything. And then you sicked the girls on me, and we have one who likes to make sure justice is served. I don't know if that's the right word, but if I was on my phone, because I was banned from all screens, if I was on my phone, she would tell Dad. If I couldn't, I could only listen to podcasts or something, things on my phone, and I had to have my older girls do it. It was a lot of resting, a lot of supplements, and different.
Yep. And then we wanted the stationary bike, because stationary bike and exercise is one of the best ways to help speed up recovery.
I couldn't sauna.
But we had a lot of stuff where we said, hey, you're doing too much. Stop it. It's not, oh, well, I'm 80% of the way done with dishes. Let me just finish it the rest of the 20. It's no, you've had symptoms increasing. We need you to stop. So I don't want you to think recovery is just doing nothing, because that's definitely not right. And she did want to sauna, which once again, I was like, nope, don't do it. I can explain in other videos, or if people have questions, why that would have been a bad idea for her. But, we did supplements. We did really aggressively, because we were able to go to Yellowstone the following week, which was about
6 hour
6-hour drive plus triple the elevation that we were in.
Mm-hmm.
But you were able to make it through it because of the blend of rest, targeted physical exercise, but also had you doing some brain-based exercises at home.
Some of them made me angry.
And then just being really aggressive with the supplements. Even now, even though you're pretty much completely better, we're still being aggressive with the supplements, and I'm still hounding you on the exercises.
Yes.
Because we need resiliency. At this point in time, if I had to put a number, probably 8 to 10 concussions that she's had. And when you've had multiple concussions, it's like having an ankle that you've tweaked so many times. It just doesn't take much for it to tweak anymore. And so you've got to build a lot of strength and resilience in it. And so that's what we've been doing. Now, we do have other things that people do in my office, but, which if was needed, we bring her in. But we also do have a pretty good home setup for her to do stuff there.
But that's my biggest issue, is doing the exercises now, because I feel like, I am a lot better. I don't need to do it. But then there are some days where I don't do it, where I go overboard and I'm like, and it takes me back a couple of steps.
Yep. And that's the trap that people fall into. And I see this daily in my clinic. They're feeling good and they start looking for what they don't need to do. And it's like, it's okay. But do things to where you're really stable, consistent.
And it's not like they're hard. It's just, I feel like I have other stuff I need to do. And so I'm like, this is just something that can be put on the back burner, and then I don't. And then.
Yep. So any questions for us, let us know. And, we're basically going to head out, letting her leave you a piece of advice from someone that went well over a decade, probably closer to 15 or so years before it finally got treated. It was a little bit under that for diagnosis. But, what advice would you give to people who are dealing with the symptoms? They don't know they've had a concussion. So let's do that one first.
Mm-hmm. Don't know. Well, just that there's always hope. Like at the time I was just so like not distraught, but just I felt like I was sludging through life because this is what my life was. It's not going to get better. And there is hope. There is stuff that can get done. Like, it's not super common, but if you're listening and you have symptoms, get a hold of Spencer. If he can't help you, he always tries to recommend, and he's very passionate about what he does. And I get to see the behind the scenes passion of it. And so yeah, either get in contact. If he can't treat you, he can pass your information along to someone who can.
Okay, so that's for those that aren't sure what's causing their symptoms, right? From the fatigue, the brain fog, the headaches, dizziness. You don't have to have all of them, but a few of them. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't to this channel. That's the way we grow. That's the way we help more people get their lives back. Now, for those that are dealing with concussions, specifically, let's say someone had a concussion 6 months, a year ago, and they know they've been diagnosed. They know it's an issue. What advice would you give to them as someone that saw improvement 15 years and now at this point we're over 20 years from when you saw had your first concussion, and you still are able to bounce back from concussions when they happen?
I think my biggest thing is the diet that we eat. Like I say, it's really annoying, but being on top of it, because I get super inflamed when I have a multitude of different items, and I feel like that just contributes more to it. So just trying to eat healthier, less processed foods.
Okay. Yep. So for her, it's that. And then, nutrition plays a really big role for her, but other people, it's doing the therapies. It's really don't
give up. Don't quit the therapies. Because this last concussion I've had, I was tons better within the first week. But the previous time, the first time, it took us a while to get me a lot better.
Correct. And it's to remember, there's not a magic bullet. Everyone tries to sell a magic bullet in the concussion world. Like, oh, here's what I did. It cured the world. And I'll tell you, having done this for 11 years, it's not just one thing. Yes, some things matter more than others. So like for Sarah, it was a blend. It was a blend of nutrition. It was a blend. We did hyperbaric. We did, nutritional supplements. We did a lot of brain-based therapies. We did a variety of different things for her. And they each came in, acted as a piece of the puzzle that was really needed for you to get from where you're at to where you're going, because we're not focused just on brain health at this moment, but we also are looking at future brain health. The rates of dementia are going up and all of that stuff's preventable, but concussions do increase the risk. And so the more consistent people are, the healthier they are along life's journey, ultimately the better future that they get to have. So, if you have any questions, let us know. We hope everyone found this useful. Comment, let us know what you thought was best. And if there are certain topics you'd like me to cover in anything related to brain health, please comment. I'll go through those comments. And when I do future lives on Tuesday at 7 p.m., we'll make sure to cover it. So until next time, see you then. If you have found the material valuable, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Spencer Zimmerman, and leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or where you normally listen to podcasts from. If you would like to work with me, visit peakbrainandbody.com to learn more. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok, all with the handle Dr. Spencer Zimmerman. I'm also on X with the handle Dr. S. Zimmerman5. This podcast is for general information purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other healthcare professional services, including the giving of medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials are to be used at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is not meant to be a substitution for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition that they have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.